Okay, thank you very much, Greg. Let's move on to our next presenter. And you're actually going to see a theme of these SDG goals kind of stream through some of the presentations today. I'm happy to introduce to you Hamish McEwen, who's the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at the Fire and Emergency New Zealand. You're going to help me say this the right way. He joined in 2022, and took the leadership of geospatial function as part of the new Data and Analytics Director with the express aim of improving access to trusted data and intelligence to support operational strategic decision making. In February and March of 2023, the team developed a common operating picture for Cyclone Gabrielle that was accessed by over 30 government agencies, and this has set the foundation for the future. Hamish, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou, ko Remutaka te moanga, ko Te Awa Karangi Te Awa no Te Whanganui a Tarahau, ko McEwen toka whānau, ko Hamish toka ingoa. Morning, I'm Hamish McEwen. Thank you very much, Danny, for the welcome, and thank you, Richard, for welcoming us all here to Auckland. As mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about data and sharing data, and I'm going to put it in the context of the work that some of you, and actually probably a number of you, will be aware of in terms of through Gabrielle. And I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey and offer some reflections from that work that we did. First of all, I think I might just talk about who we are as Fire and Emergency. You might recognise the big trucks on the side. That's part of what we do and part of who we are. But ultimately, we are New Zealand's first response agency for everything, unless it's a crime. Please call the police, not us. And if you need an ambulance, we'll go out the door. And the way we're structured and the legislation that sits around us is that we have some primary functions, things that we have to do first. Fires, motor vehicle rescues, hazardous substances, and USAR responses, i.e. natural disaster responses, particularly rescuing people. And then there's a whole range of secondary functions that we do as well, which relate to all the other national emergencies that you're probably aware of, like Gabrielle, like the ones that have been going on the West Coast recently, and as well as medical responses. We do a huge amount of medical responses. And we are operating every day out the door. Our firefighters are out there supporting people in our communities, and yes, even rescuing cats from trees. It's in small print, but it is up there that we do that. And we really do. And we're happy to do that. It's part of who we are. And I think the really key is that we are the first people out that door. And so we're there every day before a national emergency is declared, before a regional emergency is declared, we're there. And when we respond to incidents, like, say, Cyclone Hale, and the natural disasters will be the theme of the presentation this morning, we collect a lot of information. The 111 calls come into a comm centre, which is shared with police. And so we're collecting information from somebody who's calling us. We then get that, we take that into our systems, we identify the location, we get a little bit of information about the nature of what the request is, maybe a little bit of the scale, so we can decide, well, how many appliances do we send, how many people do we send? We capture that data and we respond. We hold a whole lot of that stuff, and we're collecting it all the time, every day. Thousands of calls a year, tens of thousands of calls a year. And within that data, when we've got responses out there, our firefighters are telling us information about what's happening when they arrive. Again, the very first bits of information before anyone else knows about it, what's it like at the location that the firefighters have turned up to? We're getting that information fed back in through our ComSen. But I've got a padlock on it. We don't share that information. We've kept that to ourselves. However, when the Auckland anniversary floods hit here in Auckland, Auckland Emergency Management approached us, and they said, help us identify who's getting impacted. Who's getting impacted right now? Who are the first people? Where are the clusters of properties that are getting impacted by flooding? And we used our CAD data, which is, for those who don't know, computer-aided dispatch, which is essentially the system that captures information from the calls and dispatches people out the door. That data we gathered into our system, and we unlocked that for Auckland Emergency Management. We'd never shared that information previously. We'd always considered the confidentiality and the privacy of information a barrier to sharing it. But we did some work, we cleaned it up a little bit, and we presented it out. And we gave it out in such a way that we weren't giving out addresses, but we were giving locations or areas where things were happening. And that, for us, was big. And what was the response from Auckland Emergency Management in the little video we played? Overwhelmingly positive. This is great. Oh, it's fantastic that we can see this. So we thought, okay, cool. This is great. Worked well. What next? Cyclone Gabrielle came along. And as we all know, that was a massive event. And very early on, we had already been working with the CAD data, and I'll talk about the RDA data in a minute. We'd already people were aware that we'd shared this stuff. And so NEMA asked us to say, hey, look, can you share that a bit more widely with people about what's going on, where the calls are coming from, who's being affected across New Zealand, where and why, over time. And we go, yep, sweet, we can do that for you, not a problem. And so we started building that out. And we added our RDA data. One of the functions we have is something called capturing rapid disaster assessments. So the very first 5-minute look at a property, checking for people and the damage on the property. They're two data sets, they're two functions that we naturally performed. And we looked at putting into ArcGIS online and making that available. We also were asked by NEMA to help develop a tool to assist with wide area assessments. So, what did we do? We started building a platform. And the first thing we did was we wrangled some of our data. How did we get that data together? The computer-aided dispatch data, the RDA data, all coming in. Generally, the RDA data was coming in via a platform that we built and apps that we had available in the field. CAD data was obviously coming from the computer-aided dispatch system. We then took a piece of tech in Quick Capture that Bruce Bothaway, and those that were here yesterday we may have seen Bruce speak. He developed a Quick Capture app. We sort of did a little bit more development to it, enable us to classify and look at damage assessments across wide areas of different infrastructure. We got that set up pretty quick with existing tech. And next we began talking to people. We spoke to Vector Metering, and I don't know if Victor's here today, but a massive shout out to them. Picked up the phone call. Turned out I knew the guy at Vector. I said, oh, can we have your smart meter data to tell us whether your meters are operating, getting electricity through to the properties? They go, yep. Cool, great, fantastic. They started providing us some data. New Zealand Defence Force, New Zealand Police, all really willing to share information with us. Cell phone outage from coverage from police. We also got New Zealand Defence Force flying its aircraft and choppers up and down the east coast, provided that imagery into us. Little yellow symbol, Gaspy. If people don't use the app to check where your petrol are, I'm finding I'm getting 20-cent savings every now and again if I use the app, so I would encourage it. Bit of a plug for them, given they helped us out. They were able to combine data with Westpac transaction data to tell us if petrol stations were open throughout the region. Pop that into the tool. We also had drones flying from Fire and Emergency. We integrated those into the system. So that was all happening over the initial first days. Within a week, from the 13th to the 20th, we developed the first version of the hub. And when we released that to 34 people that we had AGOL accounts for. And so these were people that we knew or connected to, and it was out the door really pretty quickly. What happened next? So a big part of what happened next was ongoing data wrangling. You'll see the little icons representing that stuff at the top. Wasn't necessarily that easy. Some of those were pretty manual data feeds that we had to transform and load into our system, but we were getting supported by Vector and the likes of Gaspy and getting updates every couple of days or daily on that. And again, more CAD data, more wide area assessment data, all that coming into it. Wrangled that. We also had some more imagery coming in across government. We had GNS Science. They were flying and looking at slips all the way from Muriwai right down the east coast. And we had LINZ, who really helped facilitate getting the satellite data. They said, hey, FENS, can we put the satellite imagery from Gabrielle into your COP so everyone can get access to it? We said, sweet as, not a problem, we'll load that up for you as well. and Waka Kotahi's. Well, I'm sure there'll be a few people from NZTA here as well today. Fantastic. We integrated their REST service for their highway outage stuff, which was great. That was a really easy data set to use from us. So by the 27th, a week later, we released version 2 of the hub. And that's essentially the one that remained up and still remains up today in place with some data feeds flowing to it. And by then we had 127 AGOL accounts connected in. And we were doing that pretty manually. So people were helping us, word of mouth. Eagle was great through their account managers. They connected up and told a few people what we were doing, and more names came in and we loaded them up and gave them access. Sort of over the next month, a few more bits of data came in. Taumata Arawhai and Water New Zealand helped us put into water infrastructure. This was sort of getting into a more static data layers rather than those things refreshed. And by the end of March, we had 215 accounts connected and looking at the work that we'd done. And that was pretty cool. A long way in a very short amount of time. And what was amazing, I found, was that overall we got 13 government agencies to share data with us. Some of it was sort of picking up stuff like from stats that we could get, but others agencies were really willing and happy to give us information. Hey, oh yes, or proactively coming to us and saying, hey, can you help get this into your platform to share it wider? 5 commercial agencies helped us out, mostly free, to be honest. There was a few little bits of cost for us here and there when we were dealing with some servicing, but not horrific. And we ultimately ended up having 30 different information layers and data sets available within that tool. And you know, one of the powers, and Danny sort of mentioned thinking we all know each other. Well, in some cases we do actually know each other pretty well, or the degrees of separation aren't very far, and we could get a long way really, really quickly. And I'm not sure how many other countries could do that, given the relationships and the way people act and support. By the time we got to the end of March, 34 agencies, and as I mentioned, 215 individual accounts connected into it. And that was obviously being shared as well beyond that group of people within those organisations. So all that from the power of just sharing data amongst each other. Here we go. So we showed what was possible, and it's pretty cool what we could do. FENZ, first of all, we learnt that we can share our data and it's not really a problem, and actually people find it valuable. Our ability to help people understand context from that very early moment in time of what's happening is powerful, and we'd never got to that point of sharing it. And for us, we're just going to keep going and sharing that data. Feedback from all the users, massively positive. We've sent out a bit of a survey, some of you may have answered it. 100% of people said, yes, we want a permanent solution for this. Critical to that is that we're ready before the next disaster happens. You know, how can we, if we can respond so well when a disaster happens to share information and work together, how do we do that when the disaster isn't happening? How do we make sure that when we think about what we're trying to do in emergency response, we think about how do we do that collectively, not individually? So information was useful. Not all those 30 information layers were as useful as others. Different organisations, different groups found different things valuable, but we've got a reasonable idea of what the core stuff was. It was informative and definitely wanted. But there is a but. Cyclone Gabrielle arrived on the 12th. We had the platform out on the 20th, 8 days later. How useful would it have been if that platform was ready on the 12th? So that every single call that we received on the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th was automatically being displayed, and people could actually be prepared a week earlier with information to respond to. That would have been really cool. Engagement. You know, we didn't have the relationship set up with a lot of the people in this room. We now do, which is great, so let's make sure we leverage those going forward into the future. And training. One of the things we discovered in the fire and emergencies perspective is that, you know, when we're trying to give new tools to people in the field in the middle of a disaster, it doesn't always work. They're busy rescuing people, saving lives, but actually things like quick capture, quick and easy, what are those tools that we can do? But also, how do we get the communication across regions, different districts? We were really successful in the Hawke's Bay in using the wide area assessment tool. Not as successful just north into Tarawhiti and south into the Wairarapa. We didn't get the same level of penetration to those tools. We need to be trained, we need to be ready in advance of those scenarios. So there are some things that we need to work on going forward. So what are we doing? FENZ is going to build a permanent COP. We're in that process now. And for those that were here yesterday, Phil Woods, Phil's down there, he's got a bald head, white shirt. Find him later if you want to talk about the technical stuff of building the COP, because that's underway at the moment. And we're going to take all those learnings from Gabrielle, and we're going to make sure we're more engaged with the incident management teams. We're going to make sure that people have the COP before an event happens. We're going to make sure those wide area assessment tools are ready for our front line before that happens. We're working with a small group of agencies to build it, and we're not building a COP for all of you. We're building a COP for us at Fire and Emergency, but we're going to make everything available. Our layers, our data, available to you. And there's one reason why we're doing that, is that we don't think it's possible right now to build a New Zealand COP, but we can share our data with you, and you can take it and build your own, or integrate it into your own COP. And so I'd encourage you to think about how you can connect with us and think about what data we have. Think about when we're thinking about those incident management teams and we're thinking about our emergency response personnel or others emergency response personnel, how can we make sure that we're giving clear, consistent messages, that our data's aligned, that we're making it easy for frontline to do their job? That's why we want to share our data, so everyone's got that same picture going forward. And again, it'll be completely at your discretion how you want to engage in with this data and information that we make available. Now, picking up on some of the earlier work, when we do this, boy, can we make a difference. You know, the power of us all coming together, because this COP was, 13 government agencies gave us data. It's not just work of FENZ, it's all of us. We can really help strengthen the resilience of our communities. We can keep people safe and protected by being able to respond better in a more coordinated way. And that does feed into some of those core SDGs that we just learnt about earlier. So I'd encourage us to think about how do we do this and how do we do it ready and be ready in advance. That's me. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Lovely to be here, and hope to speak to you all during the day.
1 second. Thank you very much, Hamish. Maybe a quick question.
Oh, okay.
You may not know this about me, but I'm not from here. So if I wanted to find the data, how do I go about doing that?
Find the data that we have at
Yeah.
Fire and Emergency. Easiest place is just be in contact with us. And if you don't, well, find me, get an email address, find Jazz or Phil or Bruce, we're all here today. Or alternatively, just come via your Eagle account manager. And you can come in and we'll connect in and we can share. We're still having people, last week we were giving access to a few more people to have a look at the existing COP. Now that is going to change and evolve, but we've had people that want to look and see how that works and operates. So we're really open, as I said, and we'd encourage others. If you've got data that you think could be valuable, we'd love to hear about that too. If you want to create a REST service for us, absolutely, that would be great. Or layers that we can ingest into ArcGIS, into the COP for future. We'd be really happy to support that outcome. I do just want to thank everyone here for the support that you did give us during Gabrielle, and particularly to Nima, who was really fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now remembered, it's FENZ. How could I forget that? I do want to say one thing about this presentation, because when you think about that data that he was talking about, it's down at the very local level. It's someone's house. And really, you can't share that type of information. And I think for many of you, you think about your data in the rawest sense. And I think what we're seeing, one of the biggest trends, is really about how do you take that data at its rawest form and turn it into an information product. And I think that's what the FINS team is doing, because they're actually taking very raw data and they're making it available to you as almost a solution of a content that is actually something that you can use right away. So it kind of solves two problems. You're not giving away the raw format of actually the individual addresses, but you're actually making a data set that's available for you to make real decisions with. So I think all of you should be thinking about what are your data sets, because you really want, what most people are asking for these days is really answers to the data. There was a great word that someone told me last week. It's answer as a service. And that's what people are looking for. I want the answer as a service. So just think about that as you think about your systems going forward.